Hey General Hospital fans, it's Radhika from Radhika Storyline, and we're going to talk about General Hospital spoilers for the week of July 27th through 31. But first, please hit subscribe if you're not already following us. So let's start at the top, because this is a big one. Robert Gossett is set to reprise the role of Marshal Ashford as July winds down, and that is a welcome return if you ask me. Marshall's coming back into a family that has grown, quite literally, because there's a new grandbaby for him to meet, and he's also stepping in to support Curtis Ashford as he heads into his trial. Now, we don't have a ton of detail on what that support looks like yet, but you know Marshall is not the type to sit on the sidelines, so I'm expecting him to be right in the middle of whatever's coming for Curtis. And honestly, think about the timing here for a second. Marshall isn't just popping back into town for a casual visit. He's walking straight into two of the biggest things that can happen to a family at once, a brand new baby and a looming trial. That's a lot of emotional whiplash for one homecoming. I mean, on one hand you've got joy, a new grandbaby, and on the other hand you've got the very real fear of watching your son potentially face serious consequences. So this return is bittersweet no matter how you slice it, and I think that's exactly why the show is bringing Marshall back right now. Because his presence is going to hit different against that backdrop. Now, over with Kai Taylor, we've got some interesting dynamics happening. Kai is going to force Quinn to patch things up with Trina Robinson first, if Quinn actually wants to make real amends with him. Which, honestly, I respect that. Kai's not just letting Quinn off easy because they used to be teammates, he's making him do the work with Trina too. That's accountability, and I'm here for it. But here's where it gets messy. Trina and Kai are also going to get a shock related to Drew Kane's upcoming lake fiasco. And look, we know from the raw data that this is going to lead Kai and Trina to make some wrong assumptions. Now here's the thing, and this is where I get a little frustrated on their behalf, they might end up assuming Willow Kane is the one responsible for whatever happens to Drew at that lake. Except we already know that's not what's going on, because it's actually Nina Reeves who pushes Drew in the water. So Willow could be about to take heat for something she didn't even do, which, come on, hasn't that woman been through enough? That's rough, and I suspect this is going to spiral before the truth comes out. You know, this is one of those classic soap setups where the audience is sitting there yelling at the screen because we know exactly what happened and the characters are just fumbling around in the dark. And I get why Kai and Trina would land on Willow. Honestly, there's history there, there's tension there, so it's not a completely illogical leap for them to make. But it is going to be painful to watch play out, especially if Willow ends up getting blindsided by accusations for something Nina did. It's almost comedic how often Nina ends up at the center of these messes and someone else takes the blame, and yet here we are again. Now let's talk casting, because there's a lot of new blood coming into Port Charles this week. Kelly Kruger is making her debut as the recast Serena Baldwin on July 30th, and she's diving straight into deception drama, no slow build, no easing in. Serena is apparently going to be willing to play hardball and get a little sneaky, all for Lucy Coe's sake, which tells me this new Serena has some loyalty in her, even if her methods are a bit underhanded. And of course, we're told she'll share some important scenes with Michael Corinthos as part of the corporate chaos over at Deception. So Serena's not just a side character, she's stepping into the thick of the business drama immediately. And naturally, Brooklyn Quartermaine is going to clash with Serena once she's tangled up in deception business as well. I mean, did we expect anything less? Brooklyn does not share her turf easily, and a brand new player waltzing in and playing hardball is exactly the kind of thing that's going to set her off. Honestly, I'm a little excited for this one. Because Brooklyn going toe-to-toe with a brand new recast character is exactly the kind of corporate catfight this show does so well. Deception has been a pressure cooker for a while now, and adding a wild card like Serena into that mix, especially one who's already shown she'll play a little dirty for Lucy's sake, feels like it's about to turn the temperature up even more. Now, on top of the Serena recast, we're also getting a brand new mystery character. Troy Lennon Appel is making his first appearance as a business executive named Hudson on July 30th, and he is out here hunting for someone in Port Charles, showing a willingness to make some drastic moves to get what he's after. That is an ominous introduction if I've ever heard one. And this lines up with something else brewing in town, because Ethan Lovett is going to have no choice but to go on the run in the not-too-distant future. So, is Hudson's arrival connected to Ethan needing to disappear? I think that's a real possibility. Let's be honest, when a soap introduces a brand new business executive who's willing to go to drastic lengths to find someone, that person is almost never showing up for a friendly reason. Hudson has villain written all over him right out of the gate, and I love that for us, because Port Charles has been due for a fresh menace. The question is just how deep his roots go, and whether he's a standalone threat or a piece of something much bigger that's been quietly building behind the scenes. So that's the full recap of what's coming our way the week of July 27th through 31, and now I want to get into the fun part, which is where all of us get to speculate on what this actually means. So let's start with the big mystery of the week, which is Hudson. First up, my first theory is that Hudson is actually Phoebe's biological father. We know Ethan pulled a DNA sample from a PCPD cold case evidence box. And if Hudson is aggressively hunting someone down in Port Charles, it's not a stretch to think that hunt is personal, and that it's about a child he never knew he had. I could see this being the emotional gut punch storyline of the summer, honestly, because Ethan's whole arc with Phoebe has been building towards some kind of reveal like this. Next up, though, here's another possibility, and I actually think this one might be more likely. What if Hudson isn't Phoebe's dad at all, but simply works for him? Because if Phoebe's real father turns out to be someone with deeper ties to General Hospital history, someone we already know, that's a much bigger bombshell than a brand new character just being the dad outright. I'm betting the show wants a recognizable face behind this reveal, not a stranger, and that means Hudson could just be the muscle, the guy sent to do the dirty work while the real villain stays hidden a little longer. Another possibility here, and this one ties Hudson directly to Ethan's exit. We already know Ethan is going to have to go on the run soon, and if Hudson's entire purpose in Port Charles is to hunt someone down and he's willing to get drastic about it, I wonder if Ethan is quite literally the target. That DNA sample Ethan pulled from that cold case box could be exactly what put a target on his back in the first place. So my guess is Ethan didn't just stumble into danger, he created it himself the moment he went digging into that evidence. And last but not least on the Hudson front, let's talk about how this affects Trina and Kai. If Hudson's business dealings and this whole lake fiasco with Drew end up connected in some way down the line, that could widen the fallout even further. I'm not saying that's confirmed by any means, but these soaps love to tie their storylines together eventually, so keep that one in your back pocket. Now before we move off the deception storyline entirely, let me throw one more theory in the mix. I wonder if Serena's willingness to play hardball for Lucy's sake ends up putting her directly in Michael Corinthos's crosshairs, since Michael has his own complicated relationship with deception and how it's run. My guess is Serena isn't in Port Charles just to shake things up for the fun of it, she's got Lucy's back specifically, and that kind of loyalty usually comes from somewhere deep, maybe an old debt or an old friendship we haven't heard the full story on yet. So keep an eye on why exactly Serena is so willing to go to bat for Lucy, because I don't think that's a throwaway detail. Now let's shift over to Jason and Sunny for a minute, because there's a lot brewing there too. First up, I think Jason is on the verge of announcing his mob exit when he reunites with Sunny. That's the huge news I'm expecting, and honestly, it's about time we got some kind of forward motion on that front. Jason's been circling this decision for what feels like forever, so I suspect this reunion is where he finally says it out loud. And look, if that's what's happening, this is a massive shift for the entire canvas, not just for Jason personally. Sunny and Jason's partnership has basically been the backbone of this show's mob storylines for years, so Jason stepping away isn't something Sunny is just going to shrug off. I'm betting Sunny's reaction is going to be layered, part pride that Jason wants something different for his life, and part real fear about what it means to lose his most trusted right hand in this world. That's not an easy needle to thread, and I have a feeling this scene is going to be one of the more emotional ones we get this summer. Next, though, here's the complicated part, because Sunny is leaning more and more on Rick Lansing as both his attorney and his half-brother, and Jason has some serious trust issues when it comes to Rick, for very understandable reasons if you've watched this show for more than 5 minutes. So my guess is there's going to be tension in that reunion, not just celebration. Jason has to accept these changes in Sunny's life, even if every instinct in his body is telling him not to trust Rick. Another possibility here, I could see Sunny actually rushing to Rick's defense if Jason pushes back too hard, which would be a fascinating dynamic, because Sunny defending Rick to Jason of all people is not something we've really seen before. That tells me Sunny's loyalty to Rick runs deeper than just convenience at this point, and I wonder if that's going to cause a real rift between Sunny and Jason down the line. And last but not least on this storyline, let's talk about Britt Westbourne, because she may end up wallowing in some loneliness if Jason isn't willing to continue their romance. Which, honestly, breaks my heart a little. Because Britt deserves happiness after everything she's been through. I'm betting this loneliness doesn't last forever though. These soaps rarely let a fan favorite sit sad for too long, so I suspect there's a turn coming for her, we just don't know when yet. Now let's do a quick secondary storyline before we wrap up, because there's a little romance drama brewing too. Giovanni Gio Palmieri and Emma Scorpio Drake's relationship could be getting targeted, because jealous Charlotte Cassadine has a crush on Gio and it might be starting to spiral out of control. Now look, Charlotte is a minor, and she has zero actual chance of stealing Gio away from his real girlfriend, so I don't think this is heading anywhere close to a real love triangle. But that doesn't mean Charlotte can't cause some chaos trying, and honestly, jealous teenage crushes causing drama is a classic soap opera side dish, so I expect a little bit of mess here even if nothing serious comes of it. I mean, we've all seen this play out before on soaps, right? The jealous friend who can't quite handle seeing the person they like happy with someone else, so they start acting out in little ways, maybe some passive-aggressive comments, maybe trying to insert themselves into plans they weren't invited to. I don't think the show is going to let this get ugly given the ages involved, but I do think it's setting up some tension in that friend group that could simmer for a while. My guess is this ends up being more about Charlotte learning a lesson about jealousy than it does about actually threatening Gio and Emma's relationship in any real way. So here's my final take on all of this. I think Hudson is connected to Ethan's exit far more than he's connected to Phoebe directly, and I think we're heading toward a reveal that shakes up Port Charles' history in a much bigger way than one new character showing up. Between the new baby, the Ashford trial, the deception power struggle, and now a mysterious hunter with drastic tendencies, this week of July 27th through 31 is stacking up to be one of the busier weeks we've had on this show in a while, and honestly, I am here for every bit of it. We'll see. Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts because you don't want to miss the next episode. Rodica Storyline is on all the major podcast platforms including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.